What's going on, everybody? This is Dan from DanMotoMusic, and today we're going to be doing some drop tuning, learning it to do by ear, and then putting it back in standard E. So go ahead and grab your acoustic, your electric, and let's get started. Okay guys, so first of all, always have a tuner on hand, just in case you get lost. A lot of my students I teach privately, they have a little trouble doing this, and they go either too far low or too far high, and then if I'm not there, I'm always worried they'll pop a string. And only one student, I think in my 20 years of teaching, has ever done that. But it is something that can happen, and it's usually because you have a rusted string. So be careful. If your strings are kind of old, this may cause it to pop if you're doing this type of stuff, if you're not used to drop D or any of that stuff. So just keep that in mind. So with that being said, the other thing you want to always do, and I'm going to check my notes because I like having notes, is you want to also know which way to turn your tuners. So on my guitar, right here, all six are on one line. What I mean by that is some guitars have 3 tuners on top, 3 tuners on bottom. When they have them that way, guys, it's usually because you tune them differently. So the top 3 turn one way and the bottom 3 turn another way. So keep that in mind when you're learning how to tune, especially if you're changing strings, that's important. But when you're tuning, because mine are all on the same part of the neck, they all will, more than likely they should, at least, they all should turn the same way to tighten and the opposite way to loosen. And now let's talk about that. When you tighten it, you'll notice, and you always have your tuner out to see what you're doing if you're going higher or lower in letters, but you want to also feel it. So when I turn this and I tighten it, that right there alone is already going to be making it tighter, and I can feel there's tension as I'm trying to turn. Now when I loosen it, I can feel it's not as tight, the tuner's not fighting me as much or anything like that. That's pretty important to go ahead and understand right away as well, and which way is it to tighten and which way is it to loosen. That's pretty important to know as well. So let me put this back in tune and we'll get started. Okay guys, so what is drop D? Drop D is when you take your 6th string and you change it from an E down to the letter D. So we're going to be going 2 steps down. So if I am on fret 12, I'm going to be taking this, and by lowering my tuner over here, I'm going to take this note from E and I'm going to move it to a D instead on an open position. And it's not going to be this E or D, it's going to be the one over here. So in this case, not over here, what I mean is when I hit it open, this is what I meant over here. The 0 note is E already. And so this note is E, and that's an octave right there. So in reality, what I'm doing is I'm taking the open E and I'm lowering it to a D note. And that D is going to be matched with my 4th string D. Between D on the 4th string and D on the 6th, I'm going to have an A note, which I don't touch. But why is that important to know is because drop D is an open power chord. So if you have a 6-string power chord in standard E tuning like this, that alone is power chord already. But when you take it and drop D, that same thing is now played with one finger, because what I did essentially is I took this note and I lowered it 2 frets, and now I'm able to bar it because this is now a D and a D right there. And this is an A note that's between them. So this creates a power chord. If you know anything about scales, the A is the 5th scale degree from D. So that creates a D5 chord, if you will, or a power chord. So with that alone, that gives it this chunky, meaty tone because we lower the string and it has this more depth to it. And it makes playing power chords a lot faster, and it just sounds meaner. So a lot of people like to use the drop D tunings for those reasons. And okay, so let me put it back in E and we'll go ahead and go from there again. Okay guys, so the first thing you want to get comfortable with, once again, you want to know which way to turn these things. More tension is usually away from you, Let me put that on the camera. So I'm going to be turning away. Look at my thumb. I'm turning it away from my shoulder. And less tension, or putting it back or lowering, is usually towards me. So if you look at my elbow and my thumb, I'm going towards me. That's not all guitars. Not all guitars. And once again, if you have tuners on the bottom end, they may work opposite. So keep in mind, this is just an understanding, but you got to figure out how it works on your guitar, okay? So now, with that being said, drop D is really just getting used to the frequency of the wavelength and listening for when you're getting close. It takes some time. That's why I say use your tuner and follow along. Like I'll have my tuner out right here if you're learning this, have it out so you don't over jump it or under jump it, and you can just check, you know, until you get used to these sounds. When you're tuning, you want to take it in small steps. You don't want to overturn, just a quarter turn. Let's pretend this is a pie. So 1/4 turn would be from here to there, and from here to the half point, and from the half point to here, if you can see, and then from here to there. Take them in small steps. Don't overturn, because I see that a lot. People just they just really turn that tuner, and they go too far, and then we have a different problem. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, guys. So what you want to do is you want to hit the 4th string first, because that is the correct note. Keep in mind, your guitar should probably be in tune already before you do this. E, A, D, G, B, E, as far as the strings go, and then you could go ahead and drop the D or the E note to the D note by ear. So you're going to hit the correct note, meaning the 4th string D, and then you're going to hit the 6th string E, and you're going to let them ring out together. I just don't want to do it right now because I'm talking, but here's how it'll sound. After that, you're going to take your 6th string and you're going to start to lower it. So let's get into this habit. But how far do you need to go is now the question of why you're here. What you want to look for is dissonance. Dissonance causes this tension. As you get closer to the note you want, it's going to start to vibrate more. So you're going to hear like this. Here's E and D. When you're bringing this E lower to D, it's going to go, and right when it hits the D note, it's going to kind of like a flat line. That's how I've always explained it. It's going to have all this tension, and it's going to start to disperse, and it's going to hold the note of D. Once you start to pass it, you're going to start to hear that vibration. You're going to go, and it's going to fade away. So that's how you'll know if you went too far. That takes a minute to learn, though. A lot of people overshoot it, and then have to correct. So once again, have your tuner out so you can correct that. So let's do it. Let me go back real quick. Okay, so now let's do the exercise, and I'll explain as we go. Hear the tension, and always pluck maybe every 3 seconds. Don't constantly pluck. Let's do it again. Open notes. Just about right. I'd say that's pretty close. And then what I do as well is I'll play a D5 power chord open, meaning I'm going to play the 6th string, the 5th string, and the 4th string. And they all sound harmonically in tune right there. Now let's say if I overshot it, you're going to start to hear that vibration come back. And you just hear it a little bit at first. Now I'm going to move my tuner a little bit more. Notice I'm taking my time with my tuners again, like I talked about. See, now I hear it a lot. That means I overshot. Also keep in mind I'm using the distortion to heighten that sound so you can hear it more. You can do the same, that's fine. I also do this with no distortion at all. But listen now, I overshot. Now I'm going to correct. Now I'm going to turn this the opposite way, away from me instead of towards me. I had to loosen it towards me. Now I tighten it away from me to get it back to where I need to go. So now listen, hit the right note, then the wrong note. I overshot again. Now I went too high. So now let me go low again. right back in tuning. Let's do that again. Let me go in and tune this back up. Okay guys, so keep in mind, so it's really easy to overshoot. So once again, don't overturn. Have your tuner handy as well, just so you can make sure if you overshoot, you can get used to this idea. Use that like as a fail-safe, if you will, you know, just in case you go too far, you have something to help you so you don't put your guitar so out of tune and then you're sending me an email like, I don't know what I did, can you help me? I've had that happen before. So let's do it again. Right note D. Then you hit E to compare. Start to move this slow. And you don't have to go snail pace. Just get comfortable with how it turns and how it feels in your hand. And then listen for the dissonance, and I'll start to create it with my hand like I did. Let's hit it again. See right there? Flat line. Hit all strings. Not all strings, 6-5-4 only. Sounds pretty good. I like that. So now, playing power chords. Sounds good. Now the next thing we got to do is put it back to standard E. So now putting it back to standard E, guys, it's the opposite thing, but there's two ways to do it. I personally do it where I hit the 6th string and then the high E on the 1st string, but that's 2 octaves up and that may be a little bit more challenging for people. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the unison approach where we take a finger, it doesn't matter, I usually use my middle finger, but I'll use my first finger to show the example. We go to fret 5, string 6, and we hold it here because we're going to be now using the A note on the 6th string to match from the A note on the 5th. What I mean is this is not an A note right now. It doesn't matter what it is. But the A note on the 5th string is open, and that's usually how we tune to get it back from drop D. Now the reason for this is because we use a unison method, and I'll teach that in another video if you want. Just leave me a comment and I'll probably make a video of that later. But we use a unison thing where it's like this. And we put them in tune for the whole guitar that way, and that's the next step. But I like to teach drop D first because drop D allows you to understand and develop your ear before you're doing multiple strings. This is something you could just get used to. There's a drastic sound of differences that you can hear. Now what we're going to do once again, we are holding the 6th string, and you don't have to hold it like this, you can hold it like this, but I'm holding the 6th string, fret 5, and I'm plucking the A note of the open string, string 5, and I'm going to match my 6 to the A note of the 5, and that's going to put it back in standard E tuning. So let me give you this as an example. I'm going to put my finger here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to have to pluck this note and the right note, and then I'm going to have to take my right arm and turn it like this. You see this, I used to do this a lot. I don't really do it like this anymore. I have other methods, but you probably see people on stage do this. So here's how it looks. I'd say that's pretty close. Notice it went right there, and it's settled. Now, of course, I can check it now. I can use a power chord 0, 2, and 2 right here. Sounds a little off. Listen to it. So now I'll take it. I was a little flat. Sounds clean right there. Sounds good right there. Notice how I checked it. I checked it with the power chord. You can still check it with the unison. But most guitars, they're a little off in certain spots. Like I know my G string is the most stubborn, and that's usually for everybody. But it really, you have to compensate for what sounds good to you and how it is. But in this case, it sounds pretty good right there. Sounds good right there. The thing you want to be careful with is when you're pushing down on the fretboard is that you're not bending your string by when you pluck it, because then you're putting more tension and you're never going to get it in tune. So those are the basics, guys. Remember, drop D. Let's just do it one more time real quick. Listen for the sound. Flat line. Check it. Going to standard E. Taking me a while this time, huh? It's pretty close. Now, if I overshoot it, or if I can't really find myself in the tuning, what I'll do is I'll purposely take it a little lower and start again to go high. Now it's only a pinch, and that kind of gives me more direction where I need to go. So if I overshoot or if I undershoot, okay, I go a little lower and then I go back up to where I think it is. If you can't find it, use your tuner. After a while, it'll start to make sense more with your ears, guys. So those are the basics for how to do that. I hope that helps you. Let me check my notes, make sure I don't have anything else on here. How to get back to E, got it. Do not overturn. Always put your, oh yeah, always put your guitar back in tune, guys. So if you're used to having your guitar in standard E, putting it back in standard E after is important, because you can change the way the neck has tension of what it's used to. This is a piece of wood, and this wood can warp by overbowing or underbowing because it has a different type of tension. It also depends on the type of strings you have. If you don't put it back in tune, it's not the end of the world, but definitely have a case for it. Well, that's a whole nother thing. But try to always put it back to what it's used to after you're done with it. And also, once you put it into a different tuning like drop D, you may realize the string goes right out of tune fairly quickly, just a little bit, because it's not used to that tuning, and the string needs to expand and relax more to get used to it again, and then you could play. So once you tune it, you may need to do a retune maybe a minute later, or at least check it just to make sure that string is where it needs to be, because the string tension has changed and it causes it to not stay in tune sometimes. I hope that helps you guys with this guitar lesson video, and I'll catch you on the next one.